What's up out there? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Halloween Horror Movie Marathon of 2022. As of now, I have watched 30 films and my current list has 38 on there. There is 3 extra credit films that I'm going to watch later. And then I have 3 more that are on the actual list, leaving the 2 remaining films, which are part of a trilogy. I do plan on going to see Halloween Ends, and I do plan on going to see Terrifier 2 at some point. So probably going to end up with about 40 films, somewhere in that neighborhood overall. But we're at 30 right now and got a little bit more to go. So anyway, let's dive into what we've watched this week. The first film that I watched this week is Scream and Scream Again from 1970. This is a British film directed by Gordon Hessler. It stars Vincent Price, Christopher Lee, and Peter Cushing. I watched this on Vudu, and I needed this because I needed a Christopher Lee movie for the marathon. And just like the one I watched last week, Christopher Lee is in this, but he's not really the star of it. He's just kind of in there. And the same for Peter Cushing. I would say Vincent Price had the lion's share of parts in this, but I don't even think he was like the main character. It was kind of a weird movie. So it's kind of a spy movie in some ways and an action movie in some ways. And it's kind of a sort of Frankenstein movie in some ways. There's like a mad scientist, and then there's this evil government, and there's some things going on. And it's a really bizarre story, but I kind of enjoyed it. I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. And if you're into old 70s movies, especially old British 70s movies, give this one a shot. It was kind of interesting to watch. So that's Scream and Scream Again from 1970. The next movie that I watched is one that I really wanted to see badly, and this is Smile from 2022. I was really excited to see this. It's directed by Parker Finn. I did not know the main character, which is played by Sosie Bacon. I don't know her from anything. In fact, there's some other actress that she looks like, and I can't figure out who that is. But she reminds me of somebody different. I thought that was who it was that was in this movie, and it's not. The other cast of note is Kal Penn from Harold and Kumar and Jesse Usher, which I recognized him, and I could recognize the voice. I just couldn't figure out who he was. And then it dawned on me, he's A-Train from The Boys. So without all the helmet and stuff, it was kind of surprising. And they don't show him in the ad. Like, they show Kal Penn and Sosie Bacon, but they don't show any of the other cast. Anyway, this was an extra movie I put on the list. This was at the theater, made in the US, and I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. I love this, and I would absolutely recommend this. I have seen the trailers for this, and the trailers don't necessarily go into everything. So I don't think it spoils anything, because like I said, I didn't even know Jesse Usher was in this one. But I loved it. I had a smile from ear to ear when I went out of this thing. I loved it. The ending was a little soft, but I can totally forgive it. I absolutely loved the entire thing. There's a lot of jump scares, a lot of noisy stuff, and I saw some critics complaining about it, but for me, I thought it was perfect. I thought it was well executed, and I love when the jump scares are done like this. I enjoyed them. I loved it. I actually loved it a lot. So that is Smile from 2022. Okay, so when we got done watching Smile, we came back and watched Hellraiser from 2022 on Hulu. Now, this was an extra film, and I was really anticipating this one. I'm a pretty big Hellraiser fan. That's one of my franchises that I really like a lot out of the 80s franchises that came out. This was directed by David Bruckner, who did The Night House and The Ritual, which I loved both of those. In fact, I think I love The Ritual a lot more. So I expected a lot out of this one, and this was on Hulu, made in the US. I gave this one 2.5 out of 5 stars, and I would not recommend it, even to somebody that's never seen Hellraiser. Just go watch the first Hellraiser movie. What it felt like is they looked at I believe that the first 2 Hellraiser movies are probably the most popular. I don't think a lot of people care for part 3 or part 4. And myself, I love the first 4, and then I can just ditch the rest of them. They don't all connect very well. The first 4 at least follow the same lore, or mostly the same lore, and stick together. This one kind of just takes some bullet points from, say, the first 2 movies, and like you get some weird MC Escher stairwell things going on, and you got the puzzle box, and you've got Pinhead, and you've got certain features from the first 2 movies, the Leviathan thing and all this stuff. but then it doesn't really give you any of the backstory. And this isn't necessarily because Doug Bradley isn't in it. I thought the person they picked for Pinhead was pretty good and they did a fine job. And I thought the Cenobites looked good. They have more of a fleshy, cut up flesh look instead of the leather Judas Priest look. I prefer the Judas Priest look myself. You know, all the body horror that's going on with them and all the leather and everything. It just fits this whole movie theme, I think, better than these things did. Now, these were good. They had some good makeup and everything. But the problem that I had is it felt more like a made-for-TV movie. And, of course, it's on Hulu, so it's got a bunch of advertisements through it, and they're not very well placed. So you're in the middle of a scene, and bam, next ad, a minute and a half advertisements, and then it comes back. So it was really jarring, and I didn't appreciate that. And it just didn't feel like it felt like a watered down Hellraiser movie. It did not feel like a return to form or a reboot. It just kind of felt like somebody sat down, picked some things out of the first two movies that fans would like, and then put them in this movie and spit it out the door. I would have loved to have seen more lore. I would have loved to have seen more backstory on where Pinhead came from, where the Cenobites came from. They did one thing to a Cenobite that I don't think should have ever happened. Like, it just didn't make sense to the story. And like in part 3, I like how they brought people that were in the movie earlier out as Cenobites. Once they got killed, they were converted to Cenobites. And I was kind of hoping they'd do that. And I saw somebody mention that the main character in here, they were hoping it was going to be an origin story for Pinhead and that she was going to be the new Pinhead or something, which would have been cool too. But they didn't do any of those things. They kind of just played it safe. They said, here's the puzzle box, here's the story, and there you go. And they didn't put any of the lore about anything that goes on, who Pinhead is, what Hellraiser is about, and even something basic like the people that seek the box out are ones that are trying to seek out pleasure and pain and stuff like that. And the Cenobites are either angels or demons, depending on who looks at it. Like, none of that was ever mentioned. It's just kind of, these people find a box and bad things start happening to them. And it's usually, like, if you go to the first movie, it's the guy that was kind of an evil person seeking that box out so that he could experience all this other pain and pleasure and stuff. And none of that was told. It just all got dropped. And I don't know, the gore was okay. Like I said, it felt like, there's chains and people exploding from getting caught by chains, and that's kind of it. I don't know. I gave this one 2.5 out of 5. I did not care for it, and I will not be rewatching this or probably anything else that comes out after this. The first 4 are fine for me, and now I just kind of want to go watch those. So that's Hellraiser from 2022. Next up is a Takashi Miike film. And if you don't know who Takashi Miike is, you need to go check out some of his stuff. He is oddball. This movie is As the Gods Will from 2014. Takashi Miike directed it. I don't know any of the cast from it. It's a Japanese movie. So the category is basically from Japan. I needed so many different countries for this list. I watched it on Vudu. And I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. This movie is completely insane. If you've seen Squid Game, this came out before that, which was supposedly written before this, but they said, some of the ideas are similar. Like they have this red light, green light, but it's this little head that spins around, and every time he turns around, these people explode into bloody marbles or something. Like, it's a completely bananas movie. They've got one of those little cats you see at the Chinese places with the paw and thing. It comes up and does stuff. There's like a polar bear. There's just some weird stuff that goes on. And it's sort of like Squid Game in some regards, but then completely different. So it's similar in certain things, but not a whole lot. Bloody as all hell and just completely insane. I had to look up some of the things for the ending because I'm not from that culture. So there were a couple of things that I just didn't get, and I thought it kind of dropped off and stopped, and it actually did end. And if you know the culture, you would understand that ending, I think. So I don't know. I love this one. This was fun. This is As the Gods Will from 2014. And we're going to blow through this one because this was kind of boring. This is a movie called Blue Monkey. It also goes by the name Insect. And and this is from 1987, directed by William Fruitt. It stars Stevie Railsback, and it's the category of insect. We had to have 2 insect films. And I'd originally picked a movie on YouTube called Insect from like last year or something. But it turned out I was going to have to rent it. And then I saw this movie was coming up for rent in a few days. And I thought, okay, it's even though it's an older movie, it had like a new release on video on demand or whatever. So I picked this thing up. This movie kind of sucked. I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars. I would not recommend it necessarily. The first half to 2/3, well, the first half or so was pretty cool. It's about they're in a hospital. There's an outbreak of something. And then eventually this big bug comes along. And once the big version of the bug comes out, it gets kind of stupid and hokey. But up until then, it was kind of cool. They had a really good quarantine theme going. So it kind of fit the whole thing we've been dealing with for the last couple of years. But I don't know, it was kind of boring all told. So I gave this one 2.5 out of 5 stars. It was still entertaining enough, but not great. So 2.5 out of 5 stars for Blue Monkey or Insect. And no, there is no blue monkeys in here. Apparently there was a weird trademark and that's why it's called Insect or something like that. I don't know, whatever. Doesn't matter. This wasn't that great of a movie to dwell on. Anyway, it was from 1987 and that was it. That was that one. Okay, the final movie we watched was last night, and this is Children of the Corn from 2009. This was directed by Donald Borchers. Did not recognize any of the cast in here. The category was a Stephen King remake, so I love the original Children of the Corn, and I had to actually track this one down. Apparently this was made for Sci-Fi, and I had to buy this on Blu-ray so I could watch it. It was made in the US. I gave this one 2.5 out of 5 stars. It was sort of entertaining for a while. But the ending left a lot to be desired, and the 2 main characters were completely annoying, and you just wanted to see them get murdered horribly. They fought all the time. They hated each other. They were supposed to be married, but the one guy was from he'd served in Vietnam or something, and all she did was yell at him about how he was killing the Viet Cong or something like that, and she just dug under his skin the entire time, and he was kind of an asshole, but she was really annoying and ground on him all the time too. So they were both just kind of, the kids were all right. The one main kid, he's not the guy. He's the one from the original one, looks really creepy and everything. This kid looked more like a kid. I don't know. It just wasn't that great. And it just didn't really go anywhere. The kids all did a pretty good job for being kids. You know, they weren't loud and obnoxious and annoying. The adults were in this, but they left a lot of loose ends too. Like they didn't really explain a whole lot, and you can remake the story and kind of tell it a different way if you want, but just close some of the endings off and tie some loose ends up. And they just didn't bother. It's just kind of, whatever. So I gave this one 2.5 out of 5 stars. It's probably generous, but the Letterboxd score was a lot lower than this. I don't think it was necessarily worth that. I mean, it's a little better than that, but not like a whole lot. So anyway, that was Children of the Corn from 2009, and that gets us up to where we are currently. So we will catch you on the next one. Take care.